Hello, I'm Dr. Missick. I'm running for Texas State Representative HD 18. And I'm going to begin a series of videos where I do a report on how the campaigning is going to keep people that are interested in supporting me informed about what's going on. So, something interesting happened this past week as we had a Trump rally in Tomball, and I was able to go and get very close to the president. It's nice. This is the 5th time I saw President Trump. So I saw him at January 6th. I saw him in Conroe at the NRA convention and at CPAC, and this is the 5th time I saw him in Conroe. It was a very nice speech. It was good to see the president again.
It turned out to be a very large gathering. A lot of people outside can't get in. So we want to thank you all, this tremendous spirit that we have, and that is a very good group of people right now.
So it's a good opportunity, so I took it. And we had an event in Cold Spring, the monthly GOP meeting, and we had Dwayne Wright there, and he was giving a speech talking about the upcoming election season. And there are many candidates there that gave a brief talk, including me. And there does seem to be rising discontent against Ernest Bales. At the same time, yesterday, Ernest Bales was on the front page of the Houston Chronicle. And what he's doing in that is he's putting out his liberal bona fides and stating his opposition to school choice or any educational reform. So I told my uncle about that, and he says, that's really good for you. You can start using that in some of your push cards, your anti-Ernest Bales push cards. And it's like, well, that's true. That's true. He's resisting needed educational reform. He's hurting our students. I was kind of surprised. We shouldn't be surprised the Houston Chronicle is supporting Ernest Bales. Now, they're also saying there's nothing to see here in Colony Ridge. That's all just a conspiracy theory. I was talking to my barber about that, and she said, all you have to do is drive down the road from where she has her barber shop. It's probably just 3 to 5 miles, and see for yourself that it's no conspiracy theory, that there's a big problem with Colony Ridge terrain in Houston. So the Houston Chronicle and USA Today newspapers, as long as the New York Times, the Washington Post, these are very, very hard left-wing, radical, lunatic fringe papers. And the Houston Chronicle has been left-wing for a very, very long time. I remember reading through the Houston Chronicle back in the late 90s, and in their editorial page they had atheists, in editorials and essays, blaspheming scripture, attacking Jesus Christ. So this is a Marxist newspaper, the biggest paper in Houston. I mean, it's just what it is. That's unfortunate, but you got to call it as you see it, and that's what it is. Houston Chronicle is a left-wing, radical left-wing newspaper, and of course they're going to support Ernest Bales. Now, as far as that puff piece goes, I was kind of surprised how long it is. They wrote a novel on Ernest Bales. And that tells you really all you need to know about Ernest Bales. And like I said, starting to talk to people, there's a lot of opposition to him. The mask has been removed. People can see the true face of Ernest Bales now, and I don't like it. How did Faramir say it on The Lord of the Rings? Ernest Bales has an ill-favored look about him, and people are starting to see him for what he is, which is good. So yesterday, I got up and gave a speech, and I said, I'll re-give it here. So you had all the candidates line up, and I got up and I said, hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Andrew Missick. I'm running for State Representative, HD 18. I'm running against the incumbent, Ernest Bales. And the biggest problem we face right now in this district is Colony Ridge. And Ernest Bales created Colony Ridge with HB 4341. When I get into office, I'm going to repeal it. And we're going to have to tackle the problem of Colony Ridge. Right now, there's 75,000, mostly illegal aliens there. And Ernest Bales means to raise that number to 250,000, 250,000 illegal aliens. It's coming soon. Now is the time for us to put the brakes on this and stop it. This is the number one issue that we have in our House district, in our counties, and it needs to be confronted. I'm also supporting school choice, and as long as the incumbent Ernest Bales is in there, we're not going to have school choice. And then I talked about my military record. Been in the military for 30 years, have 2 combat deployments to Iraq, and I spent 4 years on the border. I know the border issue and how to fix it. I also have strong conservative Republican values that I will represent, and I will push the Republican Party and our policy and agenda in Austin. So thank you very much. That was my little speech. Now we have 4 people, as far as I know, could grow. On November the 11th to December 11th, that's the time at which you register to have your name placed on the ballot. So for right now, we have 4 declared candidates: Ernest Bales, me, Janice Holt, and now we have Robert Duke. And he put a scripture on his card. I got his card. I actually went and talked to him. And he seems like a decent fellow to me. Elect Robert Duke. So he says, elect Robert Duke for state representative, HD 18, is a veteran, strong borders. He looks a little older to me. I don't think he's served in, probably hasn't served in combat the way I have. Sixth generation Texan since 1840, for Texans. And he has Psalm 127:1, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. So, he seems to be a nice person. Now, I talked to some of my potential constituents, potential voters, and they agree Ernest Bales has got to go. I mean, it's refreshing to hear this in Cold Spring. But, they looked at Janice Holt. It's like Janice Holt knows the swamp in Austin. She's an expert on how the Austin swamp works. She has all kinds of technical experience and knowledge of the swamp of Austin. That could be very useful to know how the Austin swamp works. And she seems to be good on policies. Like I said, as far as I can tell, Janice Holt's a decent person. She is, however, I would look at her as a moderate Republican. And I think that we need to take a stand against the teachers' unions. We need educational reform. The teachers' unions aren't going to like it. They like indoctrinating our kids into critical race theory and left-wing politics. And Ernest Bales likes that too, apparently. We need to confront them, and of course, reform. They don't want that kind of reform. They want our educational system to be an institution of indoctrination and far-left politics. If you challenge that, hold them accountable, responsible for what they're doing, and make changes, they're going to scream and yell, and they're going to call you names and try to stop it. But this is our children, our future, our value, the survival of our country. They're teaching our kids to hate our nation, and hate our Constitution, and despise freedom, and lust for and desire Marxism and totalitarian police state. They're shaping the minds of our children for that, and we have to stop it for the sake of not just our country, but the sake of the world and humanity. So we need people who are strong against the teachers' unions. So that leaves me and Robert Duke. The concern that people had about Janice Holt is that she's lacking in charisma from their point of view. And Robert Duke is just recently moved in the area, and they think he doesn't know the area well enough to represent it. And of course, I've been here for 30 years. It's hard to believe. But I like this. This is my home. I like this part of town. And Ernest Bales, my family has been here since the 1880s. And it's like, yeah, but our family's been here for a long time too. Now, not my family as much as others. People who lived here for generations. And you're running us off our property. And that's another thing that I came across, and I've come across this a lot. People who are from Liberty County who moved to San Jacinto County because they couldn't stay in there because of Colony Ridge. And I tell them, it's like, look, vote for me. You shouldn't have to move from your ancestral lands, right? The property that's been in your family for generations. We need to get Ernest Bales to leave. He's going to move. He's the one that's going to move from Austin back to his ranch and stay there and stop hurting our society and our culture. And I was interacting with people earlier in the day, doing some campaign work. And while I was talking to them, I was talking about the threat of Colony Ridge. And this one man, he's African American. I want everybody, blacks, whites, Hispanics. I love everybody. I want everybody to vote for me. And it's like, well, I'm not too concerned about what happens in Colony Ridge. I got my property. I'm just going to close the gate and I'll be safe there. It's like, well, you might not be safe. It's already leaking out from Colony Ridge. We had cartel members going around killing men, women, and children. Let me tell you about your property, too. Bet you're paying a lot of money in property taxes, aren't you? How would you like to get property tax relief? In fact, how would you like to get property tax elimination? I went to this meeting, the GOP in Liberty, and they had Texans for Fiscal Responsibility, and they put it on the table, the need for the elimination of property taxes and the way that we can fund government and education without the exploitative taxation that we get through property taxes. It's onerous, it's oppressive, it's exploitative, and I wish that they would bring property taxes down because, as a citizen, it's like I want to contribute to society, I want to pay my fair share, but when they're, bankrupting you for property taxes, taxing people off their land, it's got to stop. It's got to stop, and we have to just eliminate. If they're not going to bring down property tax rates, which they're not, then we just have to eliminate property taxes. And we just need to stop the corruption. It's not sustainable on top of everything else. They gave this presentation, which I'd recommend. I was really impressed with Texans for Fiscal Responsibility. And even Ernest Bales, when he's first campaigning, he's not a fiscal conservative. He's got his fiscal rating for his fiscal policy is like in the 40s, just like he's not pro-life. He was given a failing grade of like 43 in his pro-life stance. So he's pro-abortion, really, based on his first term of office anyway. So they're looking at the fiscal index, I guess. Look at the value of the dollar. Look at spending. Look at inflation. Before George W. Bush, a lot of conservatives claim to be fiscally conservative, and we don't see it anymore. It's like I remember, and this is why we have Trump. And this is why we need Trump. I remember. Paul Ryan, his whole career, we have to have fiscal responsibility. Then he becomes Speaker of the House, and he starts passing these gazillion-dollar stimulus packages. Now, honestly, I'm more of a social conservative, a Christian conservative, biblical conservative, than a fiscal conservative. But I think that the government has the right to take care of it. It's the responsibility to take care of its to be responsible with money and spending of its citizens, and they're not. And we could pay a heavy price because of Rhino Republicans, and of course the Democrats. People know the Democrats are taxing and spending. And they changed the terminology to investments. And I want to mention this in passing, but we've got to confront DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, because they're discriminatory. They don't look at all people as equal citizens. They're starting to discriminate people on the basis of race, and we can't have it. We cannot have it. This ideology of racial preferences, this neo-caste system that hurts people, that shouldn't be a factor in getting hired. How you look, and your skin tone, or your ethnic background, and it's horrible. It's an anti-American. It's an attack on our U.S. Constitution. And no one should be discriminated against in any way, black, white, or Hispanic. These are violations. The DEI is a violation of human rights and discrimination on the basis of race, and we have to oppose DEI. So that's what's going on today. The long and short of it is I attended a campaign event. I was campaigning, interacting with voters yesterday, going in the streets, talking to people. And then I went to the GOP meeting in Cold Springs, and I got to speak there, give a presentation. Now, Ernest Bale's wife was there, and she heard me disparage her husband like that. I told a friend about that. It's like, good. Well, good. I'm glad she heard it, because she's part of the problem in that she's in the education system. She's probably the motivating factor. She's probably the motivating factor of I hate to say this, it's just the way it is, why he's so committed to the critical race theory teachers unions. It's her. That's her background, is supporting left-wing teachers unions. Why did he go to Austin claiming he's pro-life but then support pro-abortion legislation? Probably his wife had some influence on that as well. I don't want to attack people's family, and I do want to be a kind person, but I think that we need better, we deserve better than Ernest Bales. And if he gets voted out of office, that's not going to hurt him any. He's still a wealthy person. He's got his land and property to go back to. But our nation is in decline. We're in a very bad state, and conservatives have solutions that could save our country. And it's time for us to take action to save America. And we need to start fighting harder, and we need people that are very committed. Now, one other thing I want to mention before I conclude this video is that Ernest Bales, I got a flyer from him, and it was saying that it's a conservative checklist, how great and conservative he is. And this advertisement was paid for by the Dade Phelan campaign. So Dade Phelan is paying for Ernest Bales' campaign materials. Who is Dade Phelan? It's drunk Dade. He went on, he's presiding over the Texas House in an intoxicated state. Obviously, he was drunk and came out on video. But he is a hardcore liberal Democrat who runs as a Republican. I recommend you strongly watching the video called, it's called the Texas Heist by the Texas Scorecard, which shows how that rhinos, Republicans in name only, like Ernest Bales and in particular Dade Phelan, the patron of Ernest Bales, that's what he is. We've got a patron system, and here you have Ernest Bales as a little minion or toady of Dade Phelan. And Dade Phelan is probably going to be voted out of office very soon. But what he does is he's a Democrat that runs on the Republican ticket. And when he gets into Austin, he's like, I want to become Speaker of the House. The Democrats in Austin tend to run as a block, vote as a block. So he goes to them and says, you know, you want to maintain power, even though you're in the minority party, I can give you the control of the Texas House if you support me as the Speaker of the House. I can peel off a small handful of rhino Republicans, fellow Democrats who are on the Republican ticket, if you vote for me as a bloc, which they do. So Dade Phelan is beholden to the Democrats who put him in office as the Speaker of the House. And we see it. There's a special session that's ending today, and Dade Phelan has obstructed, as has Ernest Bales throughout his career, all the conservative legislation has been put forward. He's obstructed it. Dealing with Colony Ridge, dealing with education reform, everything that was put on the table by the more conservative Texas Senate and by our Governor Abbott, Dade Phelan killed all this legislation. And as long as he's Speaker in the House, we're not going to get effective conservative legislation with school choice, border security, confronting this immigration problem, the problem with Colony Ridge. None of that's going to happen as long as Dade Phelan and Ernest Bales are in office. So that means that March 5th, 2024 is a pivotal day. It's when the citizens can stand up and vote him out of office. In conclusion, one more thing I forgot. It's kind of funny. I mentioned how that this is Ernest Bales. Ernest Bales created Colony Ridge with House Bill 4341. He goes, I didn't create Colony Ridge. It was already there. What's HB 4341 about? I mean, you wrote it, you introduced it, Ernest Bales secretly put that bill in what was called local and uncontested legislation. It should have been contested. It is contested now, but he passed it surreptitiously. What is local and uncontested? It means, like, I don't know, building a new post office or, some more fire hydrants, buying a new fire engine for the fire department, stuff like that. Things that certain counties and municipalities need, and for some reason that need legislation to back it up in Austin, and yet here he is slipping Colony Ridge in there and allowing through legislation his friend and hunting partner, buddy, allowing Trey Harris to have his own fiefdom. It's kind of like, I remember I was kind of surprised how that Disney World is basically its own independent country, a city-state, that Florida allowed them just to do self-rule as its own nation. And of course, once Disney started becoming active, very, very active in politics, Ron DeSantis, for all his flaws, he was correct to strip all these special privileges that Disney World had in Florida. And in the same manner, Ernest Bales, he can claim he didn't create it, but what is this legislation? It does create Colony Ridge. Gives it legal protection in Austin for this man to have his own, the fiefdom, the kingdom of Trey Harris, bequeathed upon him by Ernest Bales and actually by Robert Nichols, the state senator of Liberty. So these are issues that we have to address and tackle. We need to hold them accountable for it. It's just like the FBI. Clay Higgins was confronting Christopher Wray. How many FBI agents were disguised as Trump supporters and were inciting violence or engaging violence? FBI agents disguised as Trump supporters, engaging in violence, inciting violence on January 6th. Christopher Wray refuses to answer that question. And they're looking into it, and they found out that they lost count. There's hundreds if not thousands of FBI agents who are rioting, disguising as Trump supporters and rioting at the Capitol, that they lost count of them. And they did an audit. And it's like, and the public has a right to know about that. So Christopher Wray refuses to answer how many FBI agents or assets or confidential human sources, and it wasn't just the FBI, it was also Capitol Police and apparently military intelligence that was involved in that as well as other three-letter military and national security agency, so-called. So Christopher Wray is like, well, it's not true that we organized January 6th. Of course, he didn't organize it. Trump supporters organized it. They co-opted it. They had their people there to undermine what we were trying to do in January 6th, which was to contest the electors. That was it. Let our grievances be heard and shown on C-SPAN, and then let the Congress vote. They probably would have voted to put Biden in there anyway, but they're so desperate to silence or to keep the American public from seeing the legitimate concerns about election integrity that we had. They organized this operation, the storming of the Capitol. So, in like manner, of course, I really believe, I'm going to look into this, I believe that Trey Harris recruited Ernest Bales to go into the Texas State Legislature to act in the interest of Colony Ridge. I think that's the whole reason why Ernest Bales is in the Texas State House. That's the whole reason why he's there, and that's what he does. He is the wingman for Trey Harris in Austin and the Texas State House, working with his collaborator Robert Nichols. That's just what it is. So this is an important pivotal election. If you don't like it, and a lot of people don't, we need to take a stand and stop Ernest Bales now. And I talked to Robert Duke. Like I said, I might not agree. Janice Holt is at least a Republican, unlike Ernest Bales. And maybe she could be stronger, but she's not a bad person. Robert Duke, he seems like a nice person as well. And the criticism is like, we have too many people running. People are saying, we have too many people running against Ernest Bales. They're going to divide the vote, and he's going to get in there. And I said, that's not necessarily true. This is a constitutional republic. This is the democratic will of the people. It's good for as many people as want to run. What we have to do is we got to go out there. We got to be aggressive, and at the very least, hopefully, we can get Ernest Bales to a runoff. And it's the last time Ernest Bales, sadly, there might have been some ballot stuffing and fraud going on. And I was kind of shocked. I was shocked how poorly Janice Holt performed with as much money as she poured into that campaign. And she didn't come close of taking out Ernest Bales. Now, the three of us did. We have to get him to 52% to get him to a runoff. Hopefully we can do it this time. Hopefully the best thing is for one of us to be a clear winner and knock Ernest Bales out of the race and have a decisive win on March 5th. That's what I'm going for. But if we don't accomplish that, at least we can get him to run off, and one of the three of us as opponents can take him on. And Janice, I'm going to do it. I'm going to win. I'm going to talk about other possibilities. I'm going to win. But, like I said, it seems like Robert Duke's a good guy. But I think I'm the best candidate, and I'm going to win. And I need your support. I need your support. When you get organized, we get people informed about what Ernest Bales is doing, we get them out to vote. So, continue to watch. I'm going to try to have a synopsis video of all campaign activities every day. So, thank you, and God bless you.